Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going deep on a topic that sits right between the optimizers you already know, gradient descent, and the one you've probably heard of but never used directly, Newton's method. We're talking about quasi-Newton methods, and specifically the algorithm that made them practical, BFGS. By the end of this session, you won't just know what BFGS is, you'll know why it exists, exactly how it builds curvature information out of nothing but gradients, where it's already running inside tools you've probably used, and just as importantly, where it quietly breaks down and you should reach for something else instead. Let's start with the problem it was built to solve. Here's the tension at the heart of numerical optimization. An optimizer that only looks at the gradient, plain gradient descent, is cheap. Each step costs O of n, where n is your number of parameters. But it's also nearsighted. On any loss surface with narrow, curved valleys, it zigzags back and forth instead of moving efficiently toward the minimum. That means slow, linear convergence, and often a lot of iterations. Newton's method fixes that by using the full Hessian, the complete matrix of second derivatives, to rescale every step according to the actual local curvature. It converges quadratically, incredibly fast. But forming and factoring that Hessian costs O of n cubed. Concretely, a modest 50,000 parameter model produces a Hessian that takes 20 gigabytes just to store in float64, before you've even tried to invert it. That's simply not viable at any real scale. Quasi-Newton methods, and BFGS in particular, are the answer to that gap. They build an approximate model of curvature, using only the gradients the optimizer is already computing, no second derivatives, ever, at a cost of O of n squared, and they still recover superlinear convergence. That's the promise. Let's see how it actually works. This is the one diagram to hold on to for the rest of the talk. Follow the loop with me. We start at a current point, xk. We compute the gradient. Cheap, just first derivatives. Then, instead of stepping in the raw negative gradient direction, we form a search direction using our current inverse Hessian approximation, hk. That's the whole trick. hk already encodes something about the curvature we've learned so far, so this direction is smarter than plain gradient descents. A line search then finds a step length, alpha, satisfying conditions we'll cover in a few minutes, and that gets us to the next point, xk plus 1. Here's the part that makes this a learning algorithm. Instead of discarding the step we just took, we compute two vectors for free. Sk, how far we actually moved. Yk, how much the gradient changed as a result. We fold both of those into a BFGS update, and out comes a refined hk plus 1, a slightly smarter model of curvature than we had a moment ago. That refinement is governed by one equation, called the secant condition. hk plus 1 times yk equals sk. In plain language, our updated curvature model has to correctly explain the gradient change we just observed in terms of the step that caused it. Every BFGS iteration is just take a step, learn from it, repeat. Let's put real math to that update. 3 vectors, 1 formula. Sk is simply the displacement, where you ended up minus where you started. Yk is the corresponding gradient change, and ρk is 1 over the inner product of yk and sk, and this quantity has to stay strictly positive. That positivity requirement is called the curvature condition, and it's not optional bookkeeping. It's what guarantees your updated h stays positive definite, which in turn guarantees that every direction BFGS produces is an actual descent direction. The update itself, hk plus 1 equals this sandwich of projections, plus a rank 1 correction, looks dense, but structurally it only involves outer products and matrix multiplications. No matrix inversion anywhere. That's exactly why it costs O of n squared instead of O of n cubed. It's called a rank 2 update because exactly 2 new pieces of information, sk and yk, get folded in per iteration. Hold on to that detail. It's exactly why the large-scale version of this algorithm, LBFGS, is possible at all, which we'll get to shortly. Now let's see this translated directly into working code. Here's the algorithm as runnable NumPy. Every line maps back to what we just derived. The function takes an objective, its gradient, a starting point, and the usual convergence controls. This mirrors SciPy.optimize.minimize almost exactly. We initialize h to the identity matrix. That represents our starting assumption. We don't know anything about curvature yet, so we assume it's the same in every direction. Inside the loop, notice the descent direction. P equals negative h times g. That's not just the negative gradient. It's the negative gradient reshaped by whatever curvature we've learned so far. That reshaping is the entire value proposition of this algorithm over plain gradient descent. Now look at the curvature guard, highlighted in pink. We only apply the BFGS update if s.y is strictly positive. If it's not, which happens on non-convex regions more often than you'd expect, we simply skip the update rather than apply a broken one. This single check is the difference between a robust implementation and one that quietly diverges. Skip it, and eventually h loses positive definiteness, your search direction stops being a descent direction, and the whole optimizer can blow up without any obvious warning sign. One honest caveat. In production, you wouldn't hand-roll the line search the way this pseudocode implies. You'd reach for something like SciPy's line search, which properly implements the wolf conditions we're about to cover. But the core update, the part that actually defines BFGS, is exactly what's on this slide. So when do you actually reach for each of these? It almost always comes down to one variable, n, your parameter count. Gradient descent, O of n storage, O of n per step. It's the only option once you're at hundreds of millions or billions of parameters, which is exactly the regime modern deep learning lives in. Newton's method? Quadratic convergence, but O of n cubed per iteration. Realistic only below about 1,000 parameters. BFGS sits in the middle. O of n squared storage and cost, superlinear convergence, practical up to roughly 10,000 parameters. And LBFGS is the escape hatch from BFGS's storage wall. Instead of keeping a full n by n matrix, it keeps only the last 10 or 20 SY pairs. That drops storage and cost to O of m times n, opening the door to tens of thousands, even millions of parameters, at the cost of losing BFGS's formal convergence guarantee, though in practice it still converges superlinearly on well-behaved problems. BFGS's guarantees all depend on one supporting piece we haven't unpacked yet, the line search. It has to satisfy two conditions before accepting a step length, alpha. The Armijo condition rules out steps that don't decrease the objective enough, no taking credit for barely moving. The curvature condition rules out steps that are too timid. It requires you to have made real progress along the search direction. Typical constants: C1 equals 1 times 10 to the minus 4, C2 equals 0.9. And here's the connective tissue. Satisfying the curvature condition is exactly what guarantees YK transpose SK is positive, tying this directly back to the curvature guard in our code. Now, where does this actually break in the real world? 3 places. Lost curvature on non-convex regions. The guard correctly skips these, but too many skips and H stops improving. Poor initial scaling. Starting from the identity matrix assumes uniform curvature, which wastes early iterations on badly scaled problems. And numerical drift. After enough iterations, floating point error accumulates in H. Production solvers fix this with periodic restarts or by switching to LBFGS, which structurally can't drift since it rebuilds its estimate from a bounded window every single step. This isn't just theory. Quasi-Newton methods are quietly running inside tools most of you have already used. In scikit-learn, Logistic Regression's LBFGS solver is the library's general-purpose default for dense data, because logistic loss is smooth and convex, exactly the conditions this method wants. Gaussian process regressor tunes kernel hyperparameters, length scale, noise level, usually just a handful of numbers, by maximizing marginal likelihood with LBFGSB. That's a textbook case. Few parameters, but each evaluation is expensive, so fast convergence really pays off. And SciPy.optimize.minimize exposes both BFGS and LBFGSB directly, making it the standard first stop for calibration and maximum likelihood problems with smooth, differentiable objectives. Notice the common thread across all 3: smooth, deterministic, full batch objectives with a moderate parameter count. That's the signature to look for. So here's the question you're probably already asking. If this method is this good, why doesn't every deep learning framework default to it? The answer is that secant pair, sk and yk, only means something if both vectors describe the same function, evaluated near the same point. In full batch training, that's true. In mini-batch stochastic training, it isn't. Each batch defines a slightly different loss surface, so yk reflects both real curvature and pure sampling noise, with no clean way to separate the two. Feed that into the BFGS update, and you corrupt H rather than improve it. That's the real reason first-order methods, SGD, Atom, and their descendants, dominate deep learning. They're built to tolerate exactly this kind of noise. Here's the way I'd put it. Quasi-Newton methods didn't lose to first-order methods on merit. They lost on an assumption, a stable objective between steps that stochastic training violates by construction. And where that assumption holds again, they're coming back. Full batch fine-tuning, physics-informed neural networks and other scientific ML settings with smooth deterministic losses and modest parameter counts, and active research into variance-reduced stochastic quasi-Newton methods and related curvature-aware approaches like KFAC that are explicitly trying to recover second-order information even under noisy gradients. Let's compress everything into heuristics you can actually use. 1. Reach for BFGS when gradients are cheap, the objective is smooth, and n stays under roughly 10,000 parameters. 2. Switch to LBFGS only when the full matrix actually becomes your bottleneck, not before. 3. Always guard the curvature condition. Checking that YK transpose SK is positive before every update is cheap insurance against silently corrupting your optimizer state. 4. Never pair BFGS with a fixed step size. Its convergence guarantees assume a real wolf line search. Skip that, and you forfeit the method's whole advantage. And 5. For stochastic mini-batch training, default to first-order methods. That's not a workaround. It's matching the tool to the actual structure of the problem. So, to bring it all the way back, BFGS takes information your optimizer already has, a sequence of gradients, and turns it into an increasingly accurate model of curvature, without ever paying the cost of a true Hessian. It works exactly as long as the objective stays stable between steps, and that boundary is exactly what splits the optimization landscape we work in today. Here's a question worth taking back to your own work. For whatever training or calibration loop you're running right now, is the objective stable enough, batch to batch, for a quasi-Newton method to earn its keep? I'll open it up for questions.